Imagine a woman who could have lived a quiet life, surrounded by security, respect, and recognition, but who decided to give it all up to serve the forgotten of the world. This is the story of St. Marianne Cope, a nun who left New York to cross the ocean to Hawaii, where leprosy devastated lives and drove even the bravest away. Instead of fleeing, she saw in that calling a chance to live charity in its most radical form, becoming a symbol of courage, hope, and compassion. Her life invites us to reflect. How often do we let fear stop us from taking greater steps? Marianne not only faced a disease that terrified multitudes, but transformed a scene of pain into a space of dignity and beauty. And in doing so, she showed that it doesn't take an extraordinary life to accomplish extraordinary works, but only a heart willing to love without measure. Throughout this video, we will trace her journey, from her childhood marked by faith to her years on Molokai, where she became a mother, caregiver, and friend to abandoned people. We will discover how her example has transcended time, achieved canonization, and continues to inspire thousands of people around the world. Prepare yourself, because the story of St. Marianne Cope is not just about the past, but a direct invitation to transform our own lives in the present. Marianne was still just a girl when life presented her with a heavy burden, abandoning her studies to help her family. At 14, she traded books for machines in a woolen factory, supported her family, while her dream of becoming a nun was postponed. This kind of sacrifice teaches us something powerful. Sometimes, waiting isn't a waste of time, but a silent training of the soul. It's like an athlete who spends years preparing behind the scenes, only to later shine in front of everyone. She didn't complain. On the contrary, she faced each day with patience and joy, as if she understands that even small sacrifices shape character. Anyone who looks at this phase of her life can learn that even the simplest responsibilities, caring for a younger sibling, helping around the house, or taking on a menial job, can be a school of virtue. Perhaps you too have experienced something similar, giving up a personal desire to care for someone. This is a kind of invisible victory, but one that prepares you for greater achievements. And note that her patience wasn't passive, but active, awaiting with purpose. Marianne understood that there was a right time for everything, and this kept her from losing hope. How often do we rush, wanting immediate answers, but forget that great projects take time to blossom? This is where her youth challenges us. Could a delay in our dreams actually be paving the way for something much greater yet to come? When Marianne was finally able to follow her religious calling, it seemed that all that time of waiting had built a special strength within her. She didn't enter to live an ordinary convent life, but to transform the way people were cared for. She created hospitals that became pioneers in hygiene, cleanliness, and respect for patients, something practically revolutionary for time. It's as if someone had invented a new way of looking at human beings, not just as sick bodies, but as people worthy of care. With this different perspective, she quickly distinguished herself. She became a respected administrator, director, and leader, demonstrating that faith and competence can go hand in hand. You see, her leadership wasn't limited to giving orders, but to serving, being there for others, and inspiring by example. This is a practical lesson for anyone, at work, in the family, or in personal projects. Leading isn't just about giving orders, but about offering direction with generosity. Want an example? A boss may shout to be heard, but a true leader wins through respect and care. And isn't it curious how, often, the greatest leaders emerge from those who learn to serve first? Marianne experienced this. Her heart burned with compassion, but her hands knew how to organize, plan, and execute. This rare combination made her essential for the mission yet to come. Deep down, each step in New York felt like a rehearsal for something much greater to come, as if life were merely sharpening the tools she would later use on a very different battlefield. One day, Marianne received a letter that would change the course of her life forever. Coming from Honolulu, the message contained an almost desperate request: help caring for abandoned lepers. Just imagine, dozens of congregations had already declined this invitation, fearing the disease. But instead of backing down, she saw a divine calling. Where others saw risk, she saw an opportunity to live charity in its most radical form, as St. Francis of Assisi had done centuries before. The most impressive thing is that there was no hesitation. Marianne could have remained in New York, living a safe, comfortable, and even successful life. But she decided to go further, gather some sisters, and embark for a distant and uncertain place. This is a thought-provoking point. How often do we receive invitations that seem overwhelming, but actually conceal the chance to experience something extraordinary? Maybe it's not a trip to Hawaii, but it could be accepting a new challenge, changing careers, or even forgiving someone. And note the curious detail. The letter reached many, but only she responded with courage. This shows that the difference lies not only in hearing the call, but in being willing to act when it arises. Marianne wrote in her diary that she felt no fear, but joy in serving lepers. This attitude reveals something powerful. Fear doesn't disappear on its own. It is overcome by purpose. And so, she took the first step toward the mission that would transform not only her life, but also the lives of thousands of forgotten people around the world. When Marianne and her sisters arrived in Hawaii, they found a painful landscape. Precarious hospitals, abandoned people, and misery written on every face. It was on Molokai that she firsthand experienced the extreme suffering of lepers. Alongside Father Damiao, she immersed herself in this reality without reservation, caring for the most vulnerable and sharing not only medicine but also hope. It was as if she had been brought there to become a flame of dignity in the midst of darkness. The bond between her and Father Damiao was so strong that, when he fell ill, it was Marianne who cared for him with dedication until his last breath. This reminds us of something profound. True leadership isn't just about managing, but being present when the pain hit hardest. How often do we run away from difficult situations because they seem too overwhelming? She did the opposite. She stayed. And that's precisely what creates transformation, whether in a family, a workplace, or an entire community. After Damiao's death, Marianne took on a mission as his natural successor. The responsibility was enormous, but she carried it firmly on her shoulders as someone who understands that life doesn't always choose the strongest, but rather the willing. This transition marks a turning point. She was no longer just a collaborator, but the primary role model for an entire population. And, ultimately, it was just the beginning of something even more challenging, one that would require not only courage but also creativity to transform a place of pain into a space of dignity. For 30 years, Marianne and her sisters worked tirelessly on Molokai. It wasn't just about healing physical wounds, but about restoring humanity to those who had been rejected. They created homes for orphans, taught crafts and sewing, planted gardens, and brought beauty into the pain. Imagine this. In a place marked by disease and suffering, color, music, and even elegance began to blossom in the dresses the girls themselves sewed. It was like transforming a field of neglect into a fertile ground of hope. And the most interesting thing is how this attitude can be applied to this day. Think about any situation of crisis or personal hardship. Instead of focusing solely on the problem, how about planting something beautiful amidst the chaos? Maybe it's investing time in learning a new skill, creating a more welcoming environment at home, or even helping someone in need. Marianne shows us that true transformation begins when we decide not just to survive, but to live with dignity. Even when the situation around us seems to be crumbling, she knew that it wasn't enough to simply offer food and medicine. It was necessary to touch the spirit, restore self-esteem and confidence. This practical yet deeply spiritual vision made Molokai a place where, despite leprosy, hope had a face and a name. And it's curious how, when someone decides to do things differently, everything changes around them. Her work and that of the nuns paved the way for something even greater, a legacy that wouldn't remain confined to that island, but would span the centuries as a testament to courage and compassion. At the end of her life, Marianne left not only concrete works, but a spiritual legacy that continues to inspire today. She died in 1918, after 3 decades dedicated to lepers, without ever contracting the disease. Many consider this a miracle of providence, as if God had shielded her to fulfill her mission to the end. Her death was not marked by oblivion, but by silent reverence. People from all corners of Hawaii recognized that they had lost not only a nun, but a mother. Decades later, official recognition from the church arrived. In 2005, she was beatified by Benedict XVI, and in 2012, canonized by Pope Benedict, officially becoming St. Marianne Cope. This title, however, only confirmed what was already evident to those who knew her. She had lived an extraordinary life, transforming the impossible into the possible, and showing that love, when lived radically, knows no bounds. Today, her memory lives on, especially in Hawaii, where her name is synonymous with compassion. But the most powerful part of her legacy isn't just found in monuments or commemorative dates. It manifests itself every time someone chooses to place compassion above fear, hope above pain, and service above comfort. Her story challenges us. Are we also called, in our own reality, to be like her? Perhaps not by caring for lepers on Molokai, but by tending to the hidden wounds in the hearts around us. St. Marianne's legacy is an invitation to transform lives, starting with our own. The life of St. Marianne Cope shows us that true greatness lies not in personal achievements, but in the courage to serve where no one else wants to be. She transformed places of pain into havens of dignity, cared for forgotten as her children, and lived each day as a testament to the fact that love can conquer fear. Her story is not just a distant memory, but a current call for all of us to live so intensely and compassionately that our presence becomes a medicine for the world around us. And when we reflect on our journey, we realize that the secret lay not in abundant resources or perfect conditions, but in a firm decision to trust in purpose. How many of us wait for the ideal situation to act, when, in fact, change begins the moment we choose to take the first step? Marianne didn't wait for guarantees. She answered the call and discovered that, amidst the uncertainty, lay the greatest work of her life. Therefore, as we conclude this reflection, we are left with a powerful invitation to look around and see where we can be instruments of light amidst the darkness. We don't need to be on Molokai. Just start where we are. St. Marianne Cope inspires us to see that every act of compassion has the power to span the centuries. And perhaps, by following her example, we too can leave a legacy that will never fade, because it was built with that which never dies, true love.